what up, crazy cats, and welcome back to Have You Seen That Film, where we're going to be discussing what I consider to be the greatest film ever made. And that's no lie. The only other film that I would say equals it is The Mummy, which also stars Brendan Fraser, because today we're talking about 1997's George of the Jungle. George of the Jungle, watch out for that tree. Ah! That's not my best George of the Jungle yell, but I also have neighbors upstairs and I'm sitting right beneath the vent, and I'm sure they would wonder what the heck if they heard me just go, ah! Anyways, George of the Jungle, based off a 1960s cartoon starring Brendan Fraser, Leslie Mann, and Thomas Hayden Church, and John Cleese as an ape named Ape. With such a stellar cast, it was no doubt that we were going to have such a fantastic film, one that everyone would talk till the end of time. I wish. Listen, this movie is fantastic. It tells the story of Ursula, Leslie Mann, who decides to go on an African safari. She's hired herself a guide and she's out enjoying the wonderful African jungle when her fiancé, Lyle Vandergroot, played by Thomas Hayden Church, comes and surprises her, and he's trying to whisk her off back to San Francisco, where she wants to stay here, so he reluctantly decides to stay, and he's got himself two guides, or actually two poachers, who want to try and capture the legendary white ape. So, as Ursula's fiancé, being the great fiancé he is, he's not that great. Love you, Lyle. He and her sneak off to go try and find a white ape so he can get her out of there. Well, they actually end up coming across the lion. Being the great fiancé he is, Lyle leaves Ursula and tries to go get help, but trips and gets knocked out. And that's when the white ape, aka George of the Jungle, aka Brendan Fraser, comes swinging on in and save Ursula. So for the next part of the movie, George and Ursula are hanging out looking for Lyle and actually falling in love, where Lyle and the guides and the poachers are looking for Ursula. Eventually George gets shot on the head by Lyle because Lyle thinks he's using a lighter gun, which is actually a real gun. And George ends up in San Francisco. He meets Ursula's parents. Ursula tells her parents, I don't want to marry Lyle anymore, which I don't entirely blame her, because if you've seen the movie, you know that Lyle is just a self-centered jerk, and also he shot George in the head. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want my daughter, or if I was Ursula, I wouldn't want to be marrying a man who shot someone else in the head, who I actually found quite attractive and more loving than my fiancé. So, Ursula's mom is totally against that. So she sits down with George and she says, listen here, stripes go with stripes, spots with spots. Ursula's a stripe and you are a spot, one which I intend to remove. Yes, I'm quoting the movie. I love this movie so much I can quote it word for word. We would do that for this video, but you're here to hear a review, not hear the movie. And you can watch the movie. Anyways, she tells George that if she doesn't leave Ursula alone, she will remove his reason for wearing a loincloth. George takes a hint, and, well, he actually doesn't leave. It's not until Tuki, a toucan bird, comes in and tells him that the poachers, who are still back in Africa, are taking Ape, because Ape is a talking ape. And so George leaves Ursula in San Francisco and goes back to save Ape. When Ursula finds out, she decides, I want George, and she goes back to Africa to get George. And that's where I'm going to leave you, because I don't want to spoil anything if you haven't seen it yet. Because I'm not a spoiler guy. I don't like people who do spoil. This is a review and a chance for you to get a little taste of what the movie's about, and then go find out for yourself. If you want spoilers, go somewhere else. Anyways, so that is the plot of George of the Jungle. You know, I, since a little kid, have loved this movie. It's one I watched a lot growing up, repeatedly, and it's one that, as a 26-year-old man, I still watch repeatedly. It's so great about George of the Jungle for me, and you know, it may be more nostalgia than anything, but it's such a feel-good film. It's a movie that if I'm sick, I watch it. If I'm in a good mood, I watch it. If I'm sad, I'd watch it. I'd watch it in any emotion I'm having because it always makes me feel better. I'm not just going to say feel good because sometimes I'm already feeling good when I watch it. It makes me feel better. I just love George of the Jungle. It's such a simple, feel-good movie that I can just sit and laugh at. For me, I know what I'm going to expect with it, but I still laugh. I still get a quote alongside of it. And you know what? Brendan Fraser, charming as always, he's got it full on in this movie. He's so likable in this film, playing this sweet, naive character who, he's a man, but he's just so innocent and sweet. And that's something that I love about Brendan Fraser's characters, is he's always so likable, but often he plays these characters that are just so sweet. I've mentioned Blast from the Past on here before. Again, that's him playing kind of a similar role where he grew up elsewhere. He grew up in a bomb shelter, and then he comes up 30 years later, and the world's different, but the world's in the 90s, but he's in the 60s because that's where his parents were in and raised him. Whereas George of the Jungle, he was raised by a talking ape in the jungle, and then he goes to San Francisco and he starts meeting other humans. And there's an example. He's so sweet. There's a scene where Ursula passes out and he's in his arms. She's passed out because of an ape, because he talks. He's a talking ape, and he's damping her with water and pressing her down, and he's going down her chest and he sees her breasts and he goes, oh, he freaks out and he goes, there's something funny about this fella. And it's because in his head, he assumes that every man looks like him. We're all the same, which we're not, Anyways, so Brendan Fraser, he's just the highlight of this movie. But then the rest of the cast is great too. You have Thomas Hayden Church, who most of you might know him from playing, I think the villain's name is Sandman from Spider-Man 3 or from Spider-Man No Way Home. But I will forever and always known as Lyle Vandergroot. He's such a good villain. And in this one, he's a villain, but not like the worst. He's such a good actor. I enjoy him in anything I see him in. But like I said, he's always Lyle Vandergroot. And then you have Leslie Mann, who she's just very sweet, very cute. And then John Cleese's ape is great. I mean, this cast is spectacular. And then let's also mention that Brendan Fraser, what a hunk in this film. I mean, for the majority of the movie, he's in a loincloth, and boy, does he look good. Like, I'm jealous. That's, I'd love to have that physique. It's, goals right there. Anyways. So this is just one of those films that, is it a kid's movie? Yes. But do I enjoy it? Yes. Will other adults enjoy it? I don't know, but I would love to say yes, because it deserves to be loved by everyone. Because George loves everyone, It's just such another thing that's great about it is I feel like it's got everything in it. You have comedy, you have action, George fights a lion, George fights some poachers, you have romance, you have some drama. It takes all those, it's mainly a comedy, yes, but it takes all those elements that you want in a movie and it's right there for you. And it's one that I also appreciate that I could sit down with my daughter and watch it, and I'm not going to be worried about anything that's going to be said or seen. Those are something I always enjoy because I love being able to, I love watching movies, and I want, to watch them with my children, and I'm just glad that this is one that I know for sure I could sit down with my daughter, or I could leave my daughter alone and she could watch it. It'd be totally cool. But George of the Jungle, such a wonderful movie. Again, that and The Mummy are my two all-time favorite. They kind of go back and forth. Both star Brendan Fraser. Both are just so fantastic. You just can't go wrong with either one. But George of the Jungle, you just can't go wrong at any time with that. It's just perfect. That's what it is. And I'll fight anyone on that. So if you haven't seen it yet, check it out. I would love to hear what you have to say. If you have seen it, share your comments down below. I love hearing people's opinions. Let me know what you think. You might find it completely childish, and that's okay. You're wrong, but that's okay. But you also might be like me and you just love it. So, thanks for watching. If you haven't yet, subscribe down below to hear more wonderful reviews by me. And I hope that you enjoyed this video and that you enjoy the movie. Check you out next time.